about the fetal surgery itself, and I've broken it down into segments. So I've broken it down into pre-surgery, surgery, post-surgery, and then what impact it's had on Nusaybah's life. Now, first to talk about the actual procedure itself. Fetal surgery really is, because with Nusaybah she had myelomeningocele. So like I said to you, when the pencil case zip is open, and when you close it down, there's a bit that, say if it doesn't close from here, that would be the hole that now is susceptible to all types of so for example, the fluid from the amniotic fluid can affect it, so it can touch the nerves. And what happens is the nerves, but if it goes down the spine like that, the nerves start coming out like this into this pouch of like where there's water and stuff, the CSF fluid. The CSF fluid can seep out, which is one thing that makes it worse, because that adds pressure to the brain. And then the amnio fluid can then affect the nerves and keep damaging them. So what they initially thought, that if they can close that because when they did the testing in mom, they realized that between 24 and 20, after 26 weeks, nothing actually improved of those fetuses that passed away. So if some babies that passed away, they always test them, then nothing had improved. But between 24 to 26 weeks, there was that gap that if you closed it before then what you couldn't do is prevent the damage that already been done, but you could prevent any further damage being done to the nerves. And then what they'll do, they'd push, so if the nerves are going that way, they'd push the nerves in, then they'll sew it back up. So what they did was, they made an incision in my belly, they pulled the skin up, they made a vertical incision on my uterus, opened it up, and by this time, before they'd done the procedure, they had brought her back to the surface of the, they did that by scan. They kind of moved her around so that she was there, and she was asleep at that point because we had general anaesthetic, both of us, and her back was to the top. So they sewed her back up, and then all the layers of her back, put the nerves back in. Then they pushed her back in, they sewed my uterus back up, pulled the skin back down, and then sewed it. And the incision is actually a bit quite greater than the incision of a C-section. C-section is only there. This was like from here all the way to there to give him enough play with it. And so we always say that she was born twice, because she did actually come out into the world and then got pushed back in, which is the amazement of fetal surgery. But that's what they're doing. Ultimately, they're stopping and trying to prevent further damage to the child. So then we went before we started this fetal surgery, we had to have all the tests getting done. And the test, we got an MRI done at Birmingham Children's Hospital here, but then we had to get tests done in London as well, because it was the UCLH who were going to overlook the whole thing. And I remember we had to get done amniocentesis testing, which I usually don't get, but just rule out any other diseases or any other diseases that she might have, because if she had any other ones, then they would not then do the fetal surgery at all, because it wouldn't give them it wouldn't give them anything for their research, because they wouldn't know that if anything didn't get beneficial, was it because of the procedure, did the procedure not work, or was it because she had already had other genetic diseases anyway. So we had to get that testing done. We had to wait for that to come through, and that did come through. Hers was all negative for all the other genetic diseases. And so they had ruled all that out, and then they went on to, I think what it was, let me see, they did the scan. When we went to London, we met all the consultants, so the obstetricians, we met the fetal medicine unit consultants, anyone that's going to be involved. They were all so polite, so nice. And to be fair, they were intrigued, because obviously we could have been potentially the first one in the UK. She ended up being the first one in the UK, so she was the first. They were doing all this testing. They did abdominal scans, they did like the transvaginal scans, and we had a consultation with Dr. Deprest. And Dr. Deprest was a consultant that actually performed the procedure in Belgium, because this procedure has been around for a long time now, I think more than 15 years. They had it in America first, then from America they moved it to Belgium. Belgium's been doing it. and now it was going to come to UK. They're trying to transition it into the UK. So some of the surgeons that were going to perform the procedure had been out to Belgium and been firstly training, and then I think Dr. Dominic, who was a new pediatric neurosurgeon, had closed one child, or I don't know whether two, there in Belgium. So he knew what he was doing. So these people are now seeing me and kind of saying, I'm this person, this is how I'm going to be involved. And Dr. Deprest, what I liked about him was he was factual, because now when they'd done the scans there, they realised that actually it's not L1, it's higher. So even though in my head I was thinking below, but it was higher, it was T11. So he was frank. He said to me that usually when we get the fetal surgery done, when we close it up, the benefits are that it drops 2 lesions. So for example, if it was the L1, it'll drop to L3. And so that's why a lot of children that were inspected later on, or looked at into later on, that had had this fetal surgery, went on to regain movement in their legs, because L1 probably wouldn't have given them movement, but then L3 had dropped a few, so they probably would get movement in their legs. And it was improving movement, it was improving the ventricles and the water in the ventricles, so they were now not needing shunts. So, but for her, because it was T11, they said that, he said, I can't promise that. I can't promise the shunt. I can't promise, he can't promise anything, but it looks highly unlikely that she won't have a shunt. So she said probably she'll still need a shunt, and probably she still won't have movement in her legs. The only thing he said that's got a chance is a cochlear malfunction, and then if it's a cochlear malfunction, then that could rectify and reverse. So that was a positive point. And then now it was my decision to make, because they still felt that they could do it. Because there's other criteria that needs to be met. I need to let you know about this criteria. That's why we got bloods done, we got everything done, because one of the things they ask you for, and I'm going to look here and I'm going to keep telling you, obviously you have to be before 24 weeks, so that's one of gestation. You need to have no other genetic or illnesses. Your lesion, now it says on there it's from T1 to S1, but that time they said anything above T9 we're not going to touch, not right now anyway. You had to have a confirmed cochlear malfunction, which she did, and the things that would then, like, say if you've got this you can't do it, is if I've had twins before or multiple pregnancies before, then I wouldn't be able to get the procedure done. If I had a history of preeclampsia or any that type of problems, of rupturing of the placenta or anything like that, I couldn't do it, because obviously this procedure itself had risks. If your BMI is over 40, you couldn't do it. One of the ones that, or if you had previous premature that's earlier than 37 weeks, you couldn't do it. And again, that was because once they've opened you up and they've kind of poked the uterus, so the uterus can then contract at any time. And if it starts, contractions start, then they're going to have to pull that baby out. But they're saying that if you're already prone to early contractions, then it's not good for you. Then the risk outweighs the benefit, the risk to the mother. And if any risk is higher to the mother than of the benefit, or even if there is a higher risk to the mother, they won't do it. They won't do the procedure. They said they didn't want a low-lying placenta that was covering the cervix. Mine was literally 2 millimeters away. They were like, oh, what do we do? But what made the decision was because they kept sending that scans, doing the scans, and that's why I think I had a bit more scans done. They kept sending it to Belgium, to the doctors in Belgium, to see would this qualify. And because mine was posterior, so it wouldn't actually get in the way of because the whole reason they don't want it low lying is because when they cut into it, they don't want to cut into the placenta. But they're saying because mine is posterior, it won't get in the way, and it's not covering the cervix. And if it was anterior and it was low lying, they wouldn't have done it. At that time, they were saying about diabetes as well, and lo and behold, I didn't have it with mother to pregnancies, but with this one, I ended up getting gestational diabetes. But they were like, if it's diet controlled, it's fine, but if it's insulin controlled, no. again because of the blood thinning and stuff like that. So that was one thing they looked at. Yes, those are the things I would cross her out. So then at the end, she did qualify. And so she was now going to be the first in the UK. And it was all quite exciting for everybody else. And I mean, at the time, I was still a bit here and there. I was always upset. I was always worried. But this was something that I had something to look forward to. And I think what made my decision was that because after Dr. Depress said that, I was thinking, am I making the right decision? Because for me, it's not showing any benefit. When they did her scan, I remember on her toes, she flinched one of her toes. And then that just made it for me. I thought, you know what, if I don't try this, then I'm always going to think, I didn't try it. If I had tried it, maybe she would have got it. And that's just my way of thinking. That doesn't need to be every parent's way of thinking, because there's so many kids that haven't had fetal surgery, still go on, and I've seen parents have a lovely life with their parents, and they're none the wiser really. But so that was one thing they did. Then we had that was so blood. So that was basically the testing bit. So all our tests were done, and now she had, like you said, passed all the tests, and she was now qualifying for the fetal surgery. So they did an MRI to again confirm the lesion, and then confirmed it at T11, T12, and that was it. So then now we were going to go ahead. So now we were talking about what doctors and nurses were involved. So it was a big team. There was obstetricians, there was an anaesthetist team, there was a fetal medicine team, there was a neonatal team, and then there was a neurosurgeon and his team, and so because the neurosurgeon was Dr. Dominic, the main consultant of Dr. and there's a few others I can't remember, but they were lovely. They were so lovely. Mr. Peebles was the obstetrician, and there were many other staff members. It was just a massive team. And I remember when we went there, they did tell us that Gosh were going to help us with accommodation because we'd come from Birmingham. So Gosh did help us. When we went to go and have the surgery, we picked up the keys from Gosh, and we had accommodation that was close by, and that was really good for it was for my husband. It was really good because he would stay there then, and then he could be there for the whole of the stay after my surgery.